In fact, obviously Nelson Delgado, who was actually shot at after he testified to the Warren Commission and fled to England with his family, when he testified that Oswald got a lot of Maggie's drawers, a lot of complete misses of the targets, and he just wasn't interested in rifling. And in fact, they think Oswald had a problem with his coordination. They think he might have been dyslexic and had a problem with hand-eye coordination. That's obviously...
From some of his writing, I would say he did have dyslexia.
Couldn't drive either, could it, officially?
He was very intelligent, and many dyslexic people are very intelligent.
In practical situations.
Dyspraxia, dyslexia.
But that's that they thought like his rifling ability was greatly diminished because he had a problem with hand-eye coordination.
Yeah, dyspraxia.
So like you didn't rely on this man to be a shooter in any kind of capacity.
Not give him a humanitarian rifle.
Well, that's it. Give him a cheap World War II surplus rifle as well to go along with it. So so it's interesting.
Il Humano.
People did make sporterised decent quality Carcanos. You could get ammunition for it in Dallas. And there's even one of the police officers had a hobby of converting them. They were ideal deer hunting rifles because they're as lethal as a larger caliber like 303, 7.62. But you get more, but they wouldn't use clip. There'd just be one shot. Now it's a puzzle to me. You've got a rifle in the book depository. You've got Oswald in the book depository. There's no connection between them, it seems, until afterwards. They had to manufacture the connection. And why choose that weapon? Why not? Well, I suppose it was unpatriotic to have him use it.
Well, that's the one that his handlers had him
They also find that.
I'll move on as well. So this is the next point I'm going to get to was covered extensively by the late Ian Griggs, and it was what tool did Oswald use to assemble the disassembled Mannlicher Carcano? Is there any physical or pictorial evidence in the record that supports the claim that Oswald used a specific assembly tool such as a screwdriver or the old faithful dime coin for this purpose? Considering the significance of the task, it seems unlikely that someone would rely on a dime coin for rifle assembly. What tool would DA Henry Wade have presented to a jury to substantiate the charge that Oswald assembled the weapon?
Well, and disassembled it in the first place.
That's it. So what did he use to assemble the weapon on the 6th floor?
Nothing, because he didn't do it.
Exactly. But that's what I'm saying though, to try and get a bit of discussion.
Case dismissed then.
Nowhere did they find any tool that he could have used in the depository. If I remember, now, as a book depository, I would have thought there was a handyman or something who would have some tools. So, where was that?
Jack Doherty would have been able to lay his hand on something, sure.
But that's the thing though, it's like, why would he then discard, why would he get rid of this this tool?
I mean, you might set it aside or drop it or put it in a bin or something.
Well, when you look at the evidence on the 6th floor, you've got 3 shell casings around the window and you've got the phantom paper sack as well. I mean, if you were going to pick up an assembly tool, then you would be getting rid of the other evidence as well, I would imagine. So it's just another flaw in the case against Oswald. And again, Wade would have to have proved beyond a reasonable doubt that Oswald was the one that assembled the weapon prior to the assassination. In fact, it's actually key to the whole case.
I can remember a very early session of the DPUK group, Ian bringing his rifle, what do you call it, disabled rifle or whatever, disarmed, bringing it to a session and trying to operate the screws with a dime, and he couldn't. The reason was he was using a fresh, newly minted dime, too thick to fit in the slot. But I showed him that an old, worn 1930s or 40s silver dime would fit very nicely, so I gave him one.
And did he try it with the dime?
Yeah, with that, I mean, you could do it, but
it was not easily.
It wasn't that easy. I'm sure it wouldn't do the dime any good. You couldn't use it in a Coke machine afterwards.
And why use it in preference to a screwdriver when you could have just tossed it aside and used it?
I would have thought doing it with a coin would involve a certain amount of manual dexterity that possibly Oswald because of what I would call dyspraxia, probably didn't have.
I'm an electrician, and I use screwdrivers on a daily basis.
Sure.
I've never once used a 5 pence piece to
I have in one instance, and that is putting the roof rack on our car. I've used a 5 pence piece to get the little plastic plugs out of unscrew them from the holes where you put the roof rack in.
I think what Ian said was in that demonstration, the reason the dime coin was folly was because you couldn't get significant purchase on the screws.
No, you
were trying
couldn't.
to
You
do that.
couldn't get much.
So
I think you make an interesting point. Maybe there were tools in the depository, but surely that would
He wouldn't have had time to put it back in
put
the
it back,
toolbox.
exactly. They would have been
Yeah.
discarded.
Down in
would
the
have been
basement
found.
or something,
Yeah.
the
But
handyman.
it could have been assembled several days before.
well, it could have been, but that's
But
this
then
is
you've
the
still
whole.
got to try and
the
get a
whole-
link between Oswald.
The whole
That-
premise
Mr.
is
Rifle.
this bag he took had the rifle in it.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the case. The case is the disassembled
Yeah.
rifle in the bag, because as I'll get on to.
That's
The
full of
bag,
holes
the,
too.
the bag which was made from scratch, which was apparently made by Oswald from scratch, was only big enough to conceal the disassembled rifle, not big enough to conceal the fully assembled rifle. And of course, if you're going to make the bag from scratch, why would you not just make it large enough to conceal the full rifle?
Because there's very little difference between the disassembled rifle and the assembled. There wouldn't be much point, but then it wouldn't mean
You had to assemble it.
the whole thing about cupping it under his arm and Fraser's description of it on the back seat. It would be even longer. So it just doesn't.
Of course.
Barrel would be sticking out.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Of course, as well, the Wesley Fraser's. There is no collaboration for Wesley Fraser's curtain rod story. The only person, the only word we've got on it that Oswald told about curtain rods is Fraser, because he never told anybody else.
And he was,
So again, in a court of law, it would have been Fraser's word against Oswald's word.
and he was taken in under duress by
Yeah.
the police on the night. Of
Sure, he
Friday
thought he was
night.
being arrested as a conspirator.
Yeah.
They threw a confession
Shit
down
out
in
of
front of him and told
Yeah.
him to sign, or Fritz told
And
him
he
to
was
sign
on,
it.
there was only, was he 19 at the time? He was younger than Oswald, wasn't he?
Yeah.
But then you've got Jack Doughty, who witnessed Oswald enter the Texas School Book Depository and swore that there was nothing in Oswald's hands. So who are you believing?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the thing.
It's only one.
So again, another flaw in the Commission's case is that Oswald, this is to explain the lack of kind of fingerprints on the weapon, wiped down or it's always the loaners always say, well, he wiped down the rifle, that's how there was no any of his prints on the rifle. But again, what did he use to wipe it down? Like, I've never heard of anybody saying that he had a cloth or a rag. Was there any oily cloths found? Any oil on his clothing? Did he find any of this?
No gloves.
Well, the
gloves.
fingerprints in theory could be on there for a long time. Didn't they only find them when they disassembled the rifle?
Well, that's according to Day. We'll get on to Lieutenant Carroll Day. I think Tom Allier actually said in a letter to the RRB that Studebaker and Day perjured themselves before the Warren Commission. Their testimony was, they committed perjury in their testimonies, and that was to protect Will Fritz. So, and we will see as well when we go on to the palm print that there is no collaboration for the palm print being on the weapon itself. So this is another important question. The Warren Commission concluded that the Mannlicher Carcano belonging to Oswald was partly found between some cartons on the 6th floor. Okay, so for a second, let us assume for the sake of argument that Oswald has committed the assassination. It raises pertinent questions regarding his disposal of the murder weapon. What reasoning would anyone have in leaving behind such evidence as a traceable rifle at the crime scene? Oswald must have known that had the rifle not been acquisitioned by the Dallas police, that there would be nothing which could be served against him as evidence, superficially or otherwise, to incriminate him in the president's murder. With the rifle sequestered on the 6th floor where the Dallas police investigators were always going to find it, it makes the act of leaving behind the Carcano even more suspicious. And also, considering the intense rush of adrenaline and stress that Oswald would have experienced after committing the assassination, combined with the fear of potential law enforcement intervention, it seems improbable to me that Oswald would also take waste valuable time in stashing the weapon so well. Because Seymour Weitzman testified that a few of the police officers actually stumbled over it a number of times before they actually found it. So why would he do it? Why would he leave the rifle that was always going to be found on the 6th floor, that he knows will be found, that he knows will be traced back to his P.O. box? Why would he do all that and then vehemently protest his innocence?
Well, he couldn't walk out with the rifle, could he?
No.
No, but he could have stashed it a lot better
Okay, in
than
another
he
part
could
of
have
it.
done.
On the,
Like the 6th floor, for example, was the floor was getting relayed at the time. He could have stashed it in the there was it the elevators stuck on the 6th floor, lift shaft. He could have done anything. He had time. Well, he had what? Well, he got to work at 8 o'clock in the morning. He had 4.5 hours to kind of decide where he was going to stash it. Why would he leave it on the 6th floor? Chuck out the back window. Do anything with it.
Well, did he think that, well, that there's no prints on this rifle? I've wiped the rifle down. They're not going to trace it to me. Therefore, I'm just going to dump it and run.
But it's linked to him anyway, superficially.
Because of the
Mail transaction. Also, as well, you wouldn't be able to fully guarantee that none of your prints would still be on the rifle as well.
Yeah.
So the act of leaving behind the rifle on the 6th floor made no sense to me entirely. Of course, it doesn't make any sense to anybody in this room. But again, I'm judging this case against Oswald from the Warren Commission's point of view.